Hi, I'm Kelly Monaco. I'm currently unemployed, so I created this channel to earn some extra income. I'll be updating you with the latest news about the drama General Hospital.
There's something about General Hospital lately that just feels louder, messier. And yeah, maybe that's me being dramatic, but if you've been watching this week, you probably feel it too. Because what started as a pretty straightforward, did Brook Lynn mess up or not situation, has now spiraled into something way bigger. And honestly, I'm not even sure the writers fully want to admit how big they've made it. So let's just jump in before I lose the thread completely. And Tracy, we have to start with Tracy, because she is in full control mode right now, like full scary old school Quartermain control mode, and I kind of love it. But also am nervous. You should be nervous too. A few episodes ago, it felt like Tracy was just trying to contain the damage, right? Keep Brook Lynn quiet, keep the story clean, don't let the PCPD sniff too close. Classic damage control. But now she's not just covering things up. She's actively hunting for proof. Proof that Brook Lynn is innocent, or maybe proof that she can use to force the story in a different direction. And yeah, those are not the same thing, even if Tracy wants them to be. And here's where things start to get weird, because Tracy actually got her hands on the car, the one Brook Lynn was driving that night. And I swear, the second that happened, you could feel the tone shift. This wasn't just about guilt or innocence anymore. This was about evidence, hard evidence. And when has that ever gone smoothly on this show? Never. Exactly. So Tracy starts examining the car, and at first it feels like she's just confirming what we already know. Damage on the side, consistent with the guardrail, nothing shocking. But then this is the part that made me sit up a little straighter. She notices something off. Not just damage, tampering. And look, I'm trying not to jump to conclusions here, but come on, this is Port Charles. Cars don't just malfunction or get tampered with unless someone wanted something to happen. And now suddenly the narrative flips. Because if the car was messed with, then Brook Lynn didn't just make a mistake. She was set up. Or at least pushed into a situation she couldn't control. And that changes everything. But also, does it? Because here's where I start second guessing myself. Maybe I'm buying into it too fast. Maybe this is just Tracy seeing what she wants to see. Because let's be real, she needs Brook Lynn to be innocent, not just emotionally, but legally. Family legacy, custody issues, all of it. So of course she's going to latch onto any sign that shifts the blame elsewhere. But still, the show lingered on that detail. Way too long for it to mean nothing. And if it's real, if someone actually interfered with that car, then we have a whole new layer to this story. And I mean a whole new layer. Because now we're not talking about a hit-and-run misunderstanding. We're talking about sabotage, intent, a plan. So who would even do that? And don't tell me you haven't already started making a list in your head, because I have. We all have. Fans online are already throwing names around, and honestly, some of them make sense, some of them feel like a stretch, and a few are kind of wild, but I respect the chaos. And this is where the show does what it always does. It zooms out just enough to remind you that nothing in Port Charles happens in isolation. Because while Tracy is digging into the car, she's also gearing up for something else. A legal move, a lawsuit, or at least the threat of one. And suddenly, it's not just about protecting Brook Lynn quietly behind the scenes. It's about going public, about forcing the issue into the open. And that's risky. That's very, very risky, because once you take it to court, you lose control of the narrative. You think you're controlling it, but you're not. You're handing it over to lawyers, to investigators, to anyone who wants to poke holes in your story. And there are always holes. Always. And I keep thinking back to last week when everything still felt contained. Messy, yes, but contained. Now, now it feels like the entire town is about to get pulled in. Again, because that's what this show does. One secret turns into 10, and suddenly everyone is connected whether they like it or not. And let's talk about Brook Lynn for a second, because she's almost fading in her own storyline, which sounds harsh, I know, but hear me out. This whole thing is about her, but the focus has shifted to Tracy, to the investigation, to the bigger mystery. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing yet. On one hand, it makes the story feel bigger, more layered, more like a real GH arc where nothing is simple. But on the other hand, it risks turning Brook Lynn into a passenger in her own crisis. And I don't love that. I don't. She should be at the center of this, not just the reason it exists. But maybe that's coming. Maybe this is just the build-up. And okay, let me be fair for a second. The writers have done this before. They start with a personal mistake, then slowly reveal a bigger conspiracy underneath. It's a pattern, a very GH pattern. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it gets out of control and we end up with 5 villains and no clear motive. You know exactly what I mean. So, where does this go next? And this is where I get a little excited again, even though I'm trying to stay cautious, because if Tracy pushes this into a legal battle, and if the tampering angle holds up, then we're looking at a full-blown Port Charles crisis. Investigations, accusations, alliances shifting, people taking sides, and you just know the PCPD is going to get involved in a bigger way. And you just know certain characters are going to start asking questions they weren't supposed to ask. And you just know someone is going to panic and make it worse, because that's how this works. And honestly, who actually believes this is going to end cleanly? No one. Not even the characters. Not even Tracy, if she's being honest with herself. She's not trying to end this cleanly. She's trying to win. There's a difference, a big one. So, yeah, things are escalating fast. Maybe too fast. Or maybe just fast enough to keep us hooked, which, okay, fine, it's working on me. But I'm also bracing myself, because whenever this show introduces a hidden tampering twist, it usually means we're about to go down a rabbit hole. And not all of those rabbit holes lead somewhere satisfying. Sometimes they just spiral. Still, right now, it's messy in a good way, chaotic, emotional, a little all over the place, but compelling, and it'll take that over boring any day. So yeah, keep an eye on Tracy. Seriously. Because whatever she's building here, whatever case she thinks she's putting together, it's not just about saving Brook Lynn anymore. It's about control, power, and maybe, just maybe, uncovering something that was never supposed to be found in the first place. In General Hospital, the situation surrounding Brook Lynn is no longer just about guilt, fear, or a terrible mistake made in a moment of panic. It is shifting into something far more dangerous, far more calculated, and at the center of that shift stands Tracy, who is no longer simply protecting her granddaughter, but actively preparing to rescue her in the most strategic way possible. At first, Tracy's involvement seemed predictable. She stepped in as the family's shield, determined to bury anything that could threaten Brook Lynn's future, especially with so much at stake involving custody and reputation. But everything changed the moment Tracy examined the car. What she expected to find was damage that confirmed Brook Lynn's version of events, perhaps something she could quietly repair or erase. Instead, she found something far more unsettling, something that refused to stay hidden. The damage was not random. It was not the result of a simple misjudgment on the road. There were signs, subtle but undeniable, that the vehicle had been tampered with. And that discovery did more than just shift suspicion. It rewrote the entire narrative. Brook Lynn was no longer a frightened driver who made a bad call and left the scene. She became someone who may have been forced into a situation she could not control, someone who was placed in danger deliberately. That realization is where Tracy's strategy transforms into something sharper, more aggressive. She is no longer trying to cover up the past. She is trying to expose it. And in doing so, she is stepping into a far riskier game. Because proving Brook Lynn's innocence means proving that someone else is guilty, and in Port Charles, that kind of truth does not come without consequences. Tracy begins to connect the pieces, slowly but with a precision that reveals just how far she is willing to go. The condition of the car, the timing of the incident, the inconsistencies that once seemed insignificant, all of it starts forming a pattern. And that pattern leads to a single unavoidable conclusion. This was not an accident. It was an act. A deliberate move designed to create chaos, to trap Brook Lynn in a moment that would destroy her credibility and her future. And that is where the real shock begins to take shape. Because if someone targeted Brook Lynn, the question is no longer what happened, but why. Who benefits from her downfall? Who needed her to fail so completely that even her own account of the truth would sound like a lie? Tracy understands that uncovering that answer will not be easy. In fact, it may put her family in even greater danger. But she is past the point of hesitation. The discovery in the car has given her something she did not have before: leverage, a way to fight back not just defensively but offensively. As Tracy moves forward, her actions begin to ripple outward, pulling others into the storm. What was once a contained secret is now becoming a public threat, one that could ignite a legal battle and force hidden enemies into the open. And with every step Tracy takes, the stakes grow higher, the tension tighter, and the truth more dangerous. This is no longer a story about a single night or a single decision. It is the beginning of something much larger, something that threatens to unravel the fragile balance of power in Port Charles. And as Tracy closes in on the truth, one thing becomes painfully clear. Saving Brook Lynn may come at a cost far greater than anyone is prepared to pay.
I'll be back at the General Hospital soon. We'll see each other again soon. Thank you for supporting my channel. Goodbye and see you again.